Hello and welcome. I'm Rashan Gidwani and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines for this hour. President Trump has informed the British government that the United States does not require their military assistance to secure a victory in Iran. The statement signals a unilateralist approach to the conflict, leaving traditional allies weighing their role in regional stability. Israeli airstrikes on an eastern Lebanese town have left at least 16 people dead as the military campaign intensifies. Local authorities are struggling to clear debris and reach survivors amid the widespread destruction of residential areas. The Assembly of Experts has reached a majority consensus on a successor to the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. According to reports from Mer News, while an official announcement is pending, clerics state the chosen candidate aligns with Khamenei's guidance to be hated by the enemy rather than praised by it. The Israeli military has declared it will pursue every potential successor to the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. This policy aims to systematically decapitate the Iranian leadership structure to prevent the regime from regrouping. China has declared that high-level dialogue with the U.S. is vital as President Trump increases pressure on Beijing's key global partners. Officials warn that escalating trade restrictions and geopolitical maneuvering threaten to destabilize the fragile diplomatic balance between the two superpowers. A U.S. appeals court has ruled that the Trump administration cannot immediately end protected status for 350,000 Haitian migrants. The decision provides a temporary reprieve for families facing deportation as the legal battle over the program's termination continues. Canberra is currently evaluating urgent requests for assistance from multiple nations recently targeted by Iranian kinetic strikes. The Australian government is considering deploying logistical and security support to allies in the Gulf to counter the escalating regional aggression. Days after striking Iran, President Trump is hosting Latin American leaders to strengthen regional ties and counter Chinese influence. The summit focuses on securing Western Hemisphere supply chains and limiting Beijing's economic reach in the Americas. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said the country's recent strikes on U.S. bases in the Middle East are a legal act of self-defense. In an interview, Araghchi described the conflict as imposed by the United States and Israel, calling it unprovoked, unwarranted, and illegal. He added that Iran did not choose this war and clarified that Iran's missiles cannot reach U.S. soil. Therefore, their operations are limited to American bases and installations in neighboring countries. Araghchi also pushed back against comments from U.S. President Donald Trump, saying the president should apologize for the conflict. On domestic matters, he stressed that Iran's Assembly of Experts will elect the country's next supreme leader and that this process is entirely internal. He added that it is up to the Iranian people to choose their next leader, stressing that neither Donald Trump nor any foreign power would have a say in the country's political decisions. And now joining us live is Ariel Whitman, op-ed editor at Israel's financial newspaper Globes and host of the Western Spirit podcast. She's joining us live from Tel Aviv. Sir, in your opinion, there's already been extreme unrest in Iran. Will the Iranian people, if all of this doesn't culminate in the essential overthrow of the government, need even more assistance from the U.S.? To what extent do you see this war unfolding to the point where the entire government of Iran is ruled out and essentially dead? Please.
That's the million-dollar question. We don't know. We don't know. I can't say what the Israeli military people have been telling me and leaking all over the international media is that Israel has, quote-unquote, a lot of surprises up its sleeve in the next few days. I don't know what that means because no one knows what that means. We also don't know. We still hear reports of people, IRGC and Basij members on the streets, so it's still very difficult for people to go out in the streets to protest, even peacefully, because they'll pretty much get shot and killed. So we're waiting to see what exactly Israel and the U.S. will do. They've been in the past few days bombing certain besieged areas, installations, which they didn't do in the first days of the campaign. Um, it's We don't know. That's the million-dollar question, and that is also the reason why we've been hearing reports of the Kurdish separatists trying to, maybe with American and Israeli support, go into Iran to try to divert forces. The one soldier can't be two places at the same time, which is why if the Kurds come in from a certain area, you have to divest resources, and that can allow maybe some of the protesters to come back into the streets, because there won't be anyone to take them out. But it remains to be seen. The campaign still is going strong. We have, I think today, more than 500 targets just by the Israeli Defense Forces that were bombed today. The Americans, I think yesterday, said about 200 plus targets. So there's a lot more to hit, and the Iranians pretty much are, in terms of their capacity to defend themselves, are pretty much destroyed. Their air defense system is almost entirely gone at this point. Their planes have been shot down from the air. By the way, this is the first time an F-35 has shot down a plane in its history, so we've made history on that point. And their navy is gone. Not pretty much, it's gone. And so they have no defense. Their only weapon of defense is to shoot at America's allies and hope that they'll pressure the U.S. to slow down. I don't see that working. You have reports of the UAE now striking at Iran today. They've denied it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do it, even if it wasn't them today. Qatar has been threatening to attack Iran in response. The Saudis are very angry and asking Trump to hit back harder on Iran. So the strategy of hitting America's allies in order to get them to pressure America to stop seems to be backfiring. And at this point, the only thing that probably will stop the campaign short is if internal pressure in the U.S. will stop President Trump. But as of now, that doesn't seem to be happening.
You mentioned internal pressure there. Yes, last week there was a Texas shooting. There was a man wearing a Iranian t-shirt who essentially shot people in a bar. Yeah, exactly. Have there been other instances which I've not been privy to hearing about? What do you believe can go wrong in the United States?
Well, we've heard that the FBI is on heightened alert. We've heard that there is intelligence of things that might be in the works. As of now, we haven't heard of anything else. The danger, I think, more than inside the U.S., is that American embassies all over the world. Iran has proxies. Hezbollah has a history of attacking American embassies all over the world, actually, in the past. So I wouldn't put it past them. That's where the U.S. should be worried, and they are. They're definitely, putting down the resources in certain areas. And stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if some embassies are targeted, not just in the Arab world. We saw that in some of the Gulf states right away, that the American consulate in Kuwait and some other places were targeted. Thank God most of the people have not been there. So it's just been material that was destroyed or injured, hurt, but not people. So that's great. Here in Israel, by the way, we've been actually getting, I think, only about a quarter of all of the missiles shot by Iran. So if you think about it, the Iranians have been shooting missiles, most of their ballistic missiles and short range for sure, at their neighbors who aren't fighting with them at this point. We have been getting a lot less than the 12-day war percentage-wise in 2025. So I think that means that they are sure that by hitting Israel, they won't get the U.S. or Israel to stop. Therefore, it's not that worth it. So they're using their resources to try to pressure the Arab states and American interests in the hope that that'll get people riled up inside the U.S., in the Arab world. So far, it doesn't look like it's working. And I'll just tell you about my experience. I'm now in Israel. We had a missile fell about a kilometer away from where I am right now. 3-4 people were injured, 1 critical. It's pretty amazing that we've been getting for a week and I think 3 days at this point, missiles every day. We haven't been sleeping, but not a lot of people have been either injured or killed, thank God. And the spirits, when you look at the polls in Israel, 94% of Jews in Israel, Israeli citizens that are Jewish, support this, and about 40% of Arab Israeli citizens, which is a very large number for Arab citizens who are mostly Muslim to support the campaign against Iran. So the citizenry here is not like Netanyahu supporters that are for this and the opposition that are against it. It's pretty much all across the board except for the very fringe elements. So you have a united front here. And the more missiles are getting in, I think more united people are that the threat is real and has to be dealt with. So in terms of public opinion here, I don't think the missiles are doing the way that the Iranians might have wanted it.
Please stay safe, please stay alert, and we'll be right back with you shortly.
Thank you.
Next up, we have some breaking news coming in. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned that Iran's next supreme leader will not last long without approval from the White House. Trump said the United States must have influence over Tehran's leadership to prevent future instability or nuclear escalation. He stressed the importance of strong U.S. oversight, saying it would avoid repeating leadership crises in Iran every few years. Trump's comments come as Iran prepares to appoint a replacement for the late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. And now joining us live is Eric Wahlberg, Canadian political commentator, joining us from Toronto. Sir, to what extent do you believe the U.S. will go to entirely wipe out the government in Iran? And do you believe that they will even send their own representatives from Congress and the White House to step into Iran to essentially set up a new government of sorts? What are your thoughts, sir? Please. Sir, I'm so sorry. You have muted yourself. If you could please unmute yourself, that would be great.
Okay.
Great.
Your question is complete nonsense. This idea that the U.S. can infiltrate a country, kill all its leaders, and set up its own government is a fantasy. This is a Trumpian fantasy. But first, I'd like to address some of the comments of Ariel. It's just one lie after another. He talked about the streets of Tehran and people are afraid that they're going to be shot for protesting the government. The streets of Tehran are full of people supporting their government, and the people of Iran are not in favor of Israeli-U.S. invasion and destruction of their country. So. And in fact, it's Israel that's censoring and jailing people that are trying to expose the reality on the ground. In terms of surprises, well, how about yesterday when Haifa was, the refinery was blown up? I think that's a pretty good indication that there are lots of surprises coming from Iran. As for Hezbollah, Hezbollah does not attack embassies abroad. That's just a complete lie. I don't know why you let someone spout lies on your news program. As for the 94% of Israelis that are genocidal, yes, that's true. Israelis support their genocide against Palestinians. They support the illegal war against Iran. It's a shocking population that is racist and bloodthirsty. As for 40% of Arabs, that's nonsense. I'm sure all of the Palestinians that are living under the brutal Israeli dictatorship. I mean, basically, it's a racist dictatorship. I'm sure they are rooting for Iran, but they would be afraid to say this publicly because they would be put in jail in Israel. So that's in terms of Ariel's claims. I hope that I've cleared up some of those. And in terms of the U.S., Israel, it's going to lose this war. It's already used up most of its defense anti-aircraft or anti-missile structure. Iran bombed that. That's why it was bombing the U.S. bases all throughout the Middle East. So I think that in the next week we will see a very sad-looking Israel. If you look at any videos, if you can get through to them, there's a few on YouTube, you see Israelis crying and covering their dead loved ones with Israeli flags, spouting this nationalistic nonsense. So I hope that you can get a bit of a better, more balanced understanding of this tragic, illegal war.
Please stay with us, sir. We'll be right back with you. Next up, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says military cooperation with Russia is ongoing and part of a long-standing strategic partnership. He confirmed the ties are not new, describing them as long established and continuing into the future. Araghchi did not provide details on whether Russia is helping Iran target U.S. forces, but stressed relations between the two countries remain strong. The minister said Russia supports Iran in multiple areas, but he has no detailed military information to share, highlighting the close but discreet nature of the partnership. And joining us now live again is Eric Wahlberg, Canadian political commentator, joining us from Toronto. Sir, in your opinion, do you believe that Russia will need to step in if Iran's capabilities are totally wiped out? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think they've been totally wiped out. They have underground facilities that they've prepared. They know that U.S. Israel was out to get them for 40 years. So I have confidence that they're not going to be wiped out. Russia does help, of course, and so does China. They do not want to see this. The plan is for to destroy Iran, and then to take its oil, and along with Venezuela's oil, the U.S., Israel would then control really most of the world's oil, because of course Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, they're all basically just puppets of U.S. Israel. They're Arab Zionists, you can call the Emirates. So they are really more Israeli tools than anything else. So that's why it's very important for Iran to weaken these puppets and destroy the American facilities there and make it clear that America is not welcome in the Middle East. And hopefully that's will be the outcome. And that's what the outcome, that's what Russia and China, that's what the whole world wants. The whole world is waiting and praying that Iran can defeat this monster that is trying to take world hegemony. That's what we're facing. U.S., if you look, just stop for a minute. You can disagree with what I say, but that is the goal of this war, is U.S.-Israeli world hegemony. And that's something that Russia and China will not allow. So I think that Iran has very solid support in its international affairs, and that they represent rationality in the world. The U.S., Israel, they represent war and madness, basically. They want to destroy anything that they can't control. They want it to be destroyed. So that is not a good foreign policy. And Iran wants, along with Russia and China, wants a multipolar world where countries respect each other and follow international law. And that's what we've seen an end to over the last, really since Trump came back into power. We've had over a year of madness. And if it doesn't stop now, it will never stop. So all I can say is that the people of goodwill are rooting for Iran.
Please stay with us, sir. We'll be right back with you. The Israeli military says it struck Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Forces headquarters, which also served as a reception, transmission, and research center for the Iranian Space Agency. The Israeli military added that missiles were launched from Iran towards Israeli territory, prompting activation of air defense systems to intercept the threat. According to Iranian state media, heavy explosions have been reported across Tehran. Israel says the strikes are part of ongoing military operations amid heightened tensions between the two countries. And now joining us live again is Ariel Whitman, op-ed editor at Israel's financial newspaper Globes and host of the Western Spirit podcast. He's joining us live from Tel Aviv. Sir, to essentially destroy Iran and the 2,500-year-old civilization that it is, do you believe that these missiles will attack and strike their most prized possessions as far as their locations are. I'm talking about some of the images, like the statues that I've seen online of religious spaces. Will that entirely demotivate them, destabilize them, demoralize them? What do you believe is the final thread here to essentially stop this, please?
I don't think that anyone is targeting religious statues or anything like that. I think that it would be just objectively. I'm not a spokesperson for the Israeli government. I'm very, very critical of the Israeli government and the prime minister. But that would be extremely dumb to just on an objective level to do that. And I don't think they are. They're on the contrary. They want the Iranians people to rise up. Why? How would you do that? By attacking their religious symbols and cultural symbols? That I just have to one thing, just on factual basis. Hezbollah was responsible for the 1992 bombing, for the 1981 Beirut embassy, U.S. embassy bombing, Buenos Aires Israeli embassy bombing. So your previous guest was just factually wrong, and also another part, he said that last today the Iranians shot at the oil refineries in Haifa. That is wrong. The oil refineries are working and have not been struck at all. So I'll just put that out there. Number two, no Israelis are crying in the streets, like he said. I was just at the mall before I came to you. Your producer can attest to that. It was a short run from the mall with my kids. They're out here playing. So no one was crying at the mall. Everyone was drinking coffee and eating very well. In terms of the objectives, again, I don't think that the objective is to destroy anything cultural or religious, God forbid. I would be against that, and most Israelis would. And so I don't accept that. I just don't think if something is collateral damage, then yes, if there is a IRGC base and next to there's a statue that just happens to be there, then things can happen. But is that the objective? Obviously not. And yes, I think that we're very close to breaking the capability of the Iranians to even shoot at us missiles. How do I know this? For your previous guest, if he wants to ask, I know this because of the amount of missiles that have been coming our way over the past week and a half. What do I mean by that? I mean that in the first few days, we've had barrages of missiles, 10, 20 at the same time. Over the past 3 days, there has not been any barrage of rockets from Iran. There has been each time one single rocket fired. And yes, a few fell through, but, and like I said, we only have, at this point, about 9 dead, a few in critical conditions, so that, God forbid, might go up. But
yes, sir, I'm so sorry. I do have to interrupt you. We do have to move on to the next story. Please stay with us. Next up, the United States military says Iranian forces are using crowded areas to launch attack drones and ballistic missiles, putting civilians at serious risk. CENTCOM has warned Iranian residents to stay indoors as military operations intensify across the region. Officials say that locations used for military purposes in cities including Dezful, Isfahan, and Shiraz may lose their protected status under international law and could become legitimate targets. It added that while the U.S. military takes every feasible precaution to minimize civilian harm, safety cannot be guaranteed near facilities used for military activity. Joining us live again is Ariel Whitman, op-ed editor at Israel's financial newspaper Globes and host of the Western Spirit podcast. He's joining us live from Tel Aviv. Sir, so sorry to interrupt you. Please continue. Of course, I do have a question. What do you feel is the essential role of international law here? Who do you feel actually has the power to kick in international law? We saw that the Pope spoke. I asked another guest about that. That guest had to say that essentially the Pope doesn't have a lot of reign or, power over the Middle East. What are your thoughts, sir? How does international law step in here to essentially smoothen things out, if possible at all, sir?
I think, frankly, that international law at this point is not something that plays any role anywhere in the world. We're in a power game. Once we beat the Iranians, we're going to beat the Iranians. I think they are behind the scenes trying to get us this to stop. And I assume they're talking with Israel and the U.S., begging for this to stop. They refuse to even announce who their next leader is because they're scared we're going to take him out. This shows the weakness of the regime. And I assume that, you know, it's going to stop when they will raise their hands and say, we want it to stop. And that's where we are. Again, the Prime Minister of Israel gave a speech yesterday to the nation. Again, I'm not a fan of Prime Minister Netanyahu, but the fact is that he was able to give a speech to the nation. He was able to speak on live TV. There was at the time no sirens, so the whole country could watch him. And at the same time, as he was speaking, there was Israeli F-16s, F-35s raining bombs down on Tehran. So that's where we are. We're going to go through this, I assume, in the next week or so. And then I think we'll be able to see where things are going. At this point, it looks like it's going very quickly. Their defenses are pretty much down, like I said. And the Israelis think that this is going to be over pretty fast. The important thing to look at, I think, is Lebanon at this point, because Hezbollah broke the ceasefire that was in Lebanon after the strikes on Iran. And Israel has moved in ground forces into Lebanon, into this very southern parts of Lebanon. The Hezbollah has moved past the Litani River, which is against the ceasefire. And so Israel will have to divert resources and military assets that were supposed to go to Iran in order to fight Hezbollah. 2 soldiers were killed this morning in Lebanon in firefights with Hezbollah. So that's, I think, the big story going forward. The Iran thing, I think, even though we tend to focus on it, it will be over in the next week or so. They're going to try to get some sort of ceasefire. They'll give up. They're going to try to save their regime. The question is if the people inside will be able to go, you know, do what they need to do. Israel, for its part, and America, for its part, will have the next week, 2 weeks, I think, will be over. No one is sending ground forces into Iran, and at some point, the targets will just end. You know, we're taking everything out, so it'll be over at some point. Lebanon is where we have to look at, and I think there it might drag on for a long time.
Please stay with us, sir. We'll be right back with you. Lebanon's Foreign Minister Youssef Raji has condemned Iranian attacks on Gulf states, Jordan and Iraq, saying Hezbollah's military actions do not represent the Lebanese state. Speaking in an Arab League meeting, Raji accused Hezbollah of disregarding Lebanon's national interests and acting independently. He reiterated calls for the group to surrender its weapons immediately. The remarks come after the Lebanese army withdrew from positions along the southern border following all the attacks that have taken place. Now, joining us live again is Ariel Whitman, op-ed editor at Israel's financial newspaper Globes and host of the Western Spirit podcast. He's joining us live from Tel Aviv. Sir, so essentially what I just shared is that the Lebanese government wants to disregard any sort of alliance with Hezbollah. To what extent do you believe this is true?
No, they really don't want Hezbollah to do what it's doing. Their country is being destroyed because of what Hezbollah is doing. Hezbollah is essentially a private army within a country. They are stronger than the country's army at this point. They don't listen to the democratically elected government of the country. They are beholden to interests outside of Lebanon. And the Lebanese citizens are the ones who are suffering because of Hezbollah's actions that are being done against what the citizens of Lebanon wanted to do. If you're a Lebanese citizen living in southern Lebanon, you most likely just want to continue living and having a normal life after so many years of fighting. And yet no one attacked Lebanon before this Iran thing. Hezbollah decided to attack Israel in order to show solidarity with Iran. This in turn provoked Israel into attacking the entire southern Lebanon, which has Hezbollah infrastructure. The Lebanese army is too weak to take over the Hezbollah infrastructure. They just are. They even admit that they are, which is why they ask for international help all the time. And so therefore you have this private army torturing a country that is war and ravaged for so many years. I mentioned before the 1981 Hezbollah attacked on the Marines, the American Marines stationed in Beirut. So you can imagine, just do the math, how many years they have civil war and wars with the West and internal and stuff like that. So, and they just want quiet, most Lebanese people. And then you have this terrorist army inside that decides to attack Israel just on the basis of being friends with Iran. And we are in a place where now the entire southern Lebanon is being evacuated because Israel's bombing there, and other areas inside Beirut that are Hezbollah affiliated areas are being evacuated. And I assume at this point hundreds of thousands of Lebanese citizens are being affected in a very bad way. And all for what? What are they hoping to achieve? They're not going to stop the war in Iran. They're not going to stop Israel attacking them in response. It's just torturing their own citizens. And it's very sad. If you're a citizen of Lebanon, especially if you're not someone who supports Hezbollah and you voted for another party in the Lebanese government, why do you deserve what's happening now? You don't. And they just took it upon themselves to torture their own people. It's very sad. And it's horrible.
Yes, it is unfortunate. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Thank you for those insights. Next up, the Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani has received a telephone call from the French President Emmanuel Macron. During the call, Macron has reiterated France's condemnation of Iran's continued aggression against the state of Qatar and other countries in the region, which poses a threat to their security, stability, and sovereignty. Macron has also affirmed France's full solidarity with the state of Qatar in the face of the Iranian attacks it is experiencing, praising the effectiveness of the Qatari armed forces in enhancing security and protecting all those on its territory, including French residents. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.